Hey guys, once again, welcome back. Anurag here. You can hear me? Hopefully, you guys can hear me. Hello. Hello, Rama. Hello, Srinivasulu. And hello, Ashank. Good to see you. Let me know if my voice is a little low. I'll try to increase it to 5. Okay, hopefully, you can hear me clearly and things are okay. If my voice is low, then just let me know, guys. Okay. Okay. So now we'll do some few positions at the start and Uh, we'll start with this one now. Based on what we have done thus far, we are just trying to understand what we should try to do in certain positions. Like, rook h3 is hanging, and I'm sure everybody is going to first capture that rook on h3. So after rook h3, let's just flip the board and see what we should do as white, as black here. What are the important threats that white has? What are your problems, etc. And then we will try to figure out what black should do in this position. Is there any urgency? Is there something that white is trying to do immediately in this position, which is going to be a problem for us? We are just trying to figure that out, and then accordingly we will go about it. Is there any threat you see from white side first? Yeah, hello, Gupta K. Good to see you here. That's the first thing we'll try to see whether there is any immediate threat that we have to really worry about. And yeah, I think we're good. Yeah, guys, any ideas? Yeah. We have the opposite kill bishop. So the first thing you should see is he has the queens on the board. The queen and bishop combo, I have told you earlier, can be pretty dangerous in such positions where there are some entry points for your opponent. Okay. There are some entry points for your opponent to get in. So is there any entry point you see here in this particular position for white? That is all you have to figure out, and it is white to play, it is black to play, guys. It is black to play, Gupta. But what you have to first see is there's an urgency. Like, you can see that we have simple ideas like rook into g5, winning a pawn. Should we go ahead and win that pawn, or is there something that is a little bit of a worry here in this position for us? Because from what we have learned thus far, the queen and bishop combo can be pretty dangerous, lined up in a certain way. We have done some positions earlier. If you're there, you would have understood what I'm talking about. Like, the queen and bishop together can be pretty dangerous. Now, in this particular position, there is absolutely no piece which can challenge it. For example, if you had a light square bishop, you could have tried to exchange it on d7, but that's not the case at the moment. We don't have pieces. So we have to see whether white has an idea which is pretty strong and accordingly decide what black should do. Is there anything that we have to worry about? Nobody has told me anything, so I'll show you what it is that we could have to worry about in such positions. That is a move like queen f3 and queen g4, capitalizing on this diagonal and square, and a king on d8 is pretty unfortunately placed here. It's unfortunate in every instance. Like, it's not having a safe haven. Even if it goes here, still queen on c8, queen on a6, it can be a bit of a problem. So if you just go ahead and capture without realizing that urgency, 1 minute. Yeah, if you go ahead and capture here without realizing the urgency, then what will happen is white just plays queen f3, queen g4. What is the situation on the material? We have equal pawns, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Material is equal, but the problem is positionally, our bishop is hindered behind all the dark square pawns. We don't have that one entry point. Our bishop would have been better here, maybe outside. outside our own chain that we have knocked it into, not having a waypoint. Whereas White's bishop is excellently placed. He also has a lot of dark light squares pawns, which is not good for attacking, but he is outside that chain. He's outside on h3, allowing the queen to come to g4, head to c8, and create some dangerous possibilities in this position. So we cannot really take care of it easily. Let's say queen comes to g4. What will we do? We start running away. The queen is inside. What it does best. Sorry, you capture on this. Suddenly, there's a d6 pawn to worry about. You are not able to utilize a bishop and queen effectively to create any problems for this king on h1. So if you cannot really do that, then you have to realize the urgency. Like, okay, that g5 pawn, it's an opposite color bishops. Pawns are not the most important thing. If I exchange pieces, that will help me hold it pretty easily. I know queen f3 and queen g4 is a little bit of a problem. Based on that, you can play out your move as white here in this position. Like, what do you think you should, as black here in this position, what do you think you can try to do? Based on this, like, you know the few things. A particular bishop pawns are not the most important thing. The g5 pawn is anyways weak, can be captured a moment or later. And queen f3, queen g4 is a pretty serious idea for us to worry about. Can anybody tell me any move for black here to activate their own pieces? Anybody? Hello, RK. Rook h4. Okay. Yeah, makes sense to play rook h4. It's a thing, like rook h4 has a point, guys. Like, he wants to prevent queen g4 from coming inside. So it does make some sense, but I think white can easily try rook g4, but rook h4 also a nice move actually. Why? I will just show you. Okay, let's say I just play bishop f8, rook g4. I can try to just bring my rook back. If he moves back, I will try to do this. Yes, this is also an interesting way. Very nice there. If you actually plan this out, that's quite nice. Rook h4. The other idea is, like, other ideas you can try to open up with something and try to get some counterplay going. Of course, like, IPL, you know, I understand it's such a hard decision to make. It's such a hard decision to make for a cricket fan also, whether I should watch CSK versus Mumbai Indians or me teaching Middlegame series here. Of course, so such a hard decision. It's great that you're here, though. You can watch both side by side, maybe. I mean, it's up to you, of course, Rama. That's your choice. But the other way that I would think of like doing it here is instead of rook h4, which is nice and passive, okay? But it's passive, but it's nice. I like the idea. c4, and immediately you try to open up in the position here, because queen c4 means rook h3 is coming. And the main point is highlighted here after bc4, where black has this important resource, and that's where understanding the position comes into play. He played this in the game. I think this was Vasily Smyslov, if I'm not wrong. I don't have the name. This is my set of positions which I'm giving it to you from. So I've just named them like this. But okay, like, I think if I refer it, I will get it if you're trying to do it. Queen a3 is the move, and you're trying to exchange the queens. And immediately now you understand that the bishop has got its way inside. He has got some ideas. G5 pawn is a weakness. H3 bishop is under attack. And it's very difficult for white to find a winning idea, unless, of course, you blunder. Like, he plays bishop g4, very sneaky guy, and rook into g5. And that's it. What would you do here in this position? What would you do? You don't want to do this. Sneaky guy has played bishop g4, thinking, oh, blundered a pawn. No, of course not. The rook on g5, you should understand that the rook has no space. So it's dominated with h4, and you lose the rook straight away. So that's not what you want to do. As long as you don't do that, you would probably play rook h4, and it's difficult for white to find an entry point. If you see these pawns, his extra pawn is not very useful. Bishop will sit down on c5, and h4 also probably not going to come very easily on the board. Have to work very hard for that to come. He'll have to exchange rooks finally for that to happen. That is a long term, but you have to understand, like exchanging the queens, I take away queen f3, queen g4. I think I have good chances to hold this. Engine suggestion is not this. Engine is saying I will take here, I will play king e8 and I will escape. But this is difficult. You get into yourself into difficult positions where queen f3, queen g4 comes in, and then you have to play like an engine, not miss out on anything. That is not what you want to do. So c4 is the move. And this is the way you try to understand. So you have to realize what is a simple threat, and I can kind of take care of it in an active way, or nicely what you said with rook h4 in a nice passive way. That is also quite good. Rook h4 move. Whoever suggested it, Srinivas suggested it. Let's move on. So today, guys, by the way, we will be not streaming for 2 hours entirely. We will be doing it a little shorter because we also have a tournament, a Vivo Arena, in memory of Purushottam, Advocate Purushottam Kantak, who recently passed away because of cancer, fighting his battle for cancer. So if you're free, then you can definitely join the tournament. Starts at 8:35 p.m. We will be covering that on Twitch, not on YouTube, but on Twitch definitely. And yeah, feel free to join it. Now moving on next. Yeah. Now here, this is like, sometimes let's just look at it from white's perspective. Okay. If you see this position, white is completely dominating because perfect placement of pieces, excellent. The tournament link is right there. Nandi just used the command and Mr. Nightbot has responded very well. So we have all the dark squares, all the pawns in the dark squares. Excuse me, green looks better. So all the pawns on the dark squares, which is good for our bishop on the light squares. Unfortunately, it's not the same for this bishop. All the pawns on the light squares, same square as the bishop. This time we don't have opposite color bishops. Now the problem for white is, right, he has closed down the position so much that he doesn't really have an entry point only. This is what, like, once you have a good position, let's say you had a pawn on a4 in this position. Okay, let's just remove these arrows. You had a pawn on a4. Finally, you have to figure out an entry point, right? You cannot just lock down everything and then say, okay, I'll figure it out later. Something will happen, something will come along, or my opponent will play f4 and give me a free pawn. No, that's not the case. So it was difficult to actually find a waypoint only inside. It is not possible, actually, literally not possible for white to find it. So in such situations, you get yourself in this situation, it's okay. Material at the moment also, you should count and see that materially wise, white is a pawn down. I would not say he's worse though, he's a pawn down. So like 1 2 3 4 5 6 7. Sometimes we tend to forget this. 1 2 3 4 5 and 6. Let's put it in yellow. So we see that we have 6 against 7, 1 pawn down. But considering the dynamic of the position, considering that this pawn never will be pushing, considering that b6 breakthrough will create weaknesses, this side no breakthrough, we can say that it's safe, that white is okay here. Rare, like hardly any opening for black. And if black also over tries, he tries to get an opening, he might also run into some problems. Of course, he's also not going to be pretty safe. Now I'll show you what happened. Like in such positions, you should, like, okay, not over try and be very alert and careful about your opponent's resources. He might be very sneaky and he might just sneak upon you with the thing that you would never expect, and suddenly it just slips out of your hands. For example, now white played rook f4. So black has no actual threat, so he just, like, shuttles it h5. He just keeps it all solid. He's okay. White plays king c3. He realizes that f3 will create a weakness on e3 and black will immediately try to capitalize. You don't need to do that. You can't, if you cannot win, you just, okay, I'm okay, I'll just take a draw. I'll allow you to do whatever you want, I'll take a draw. But what happened is white tried to improve his pieces. In the process, forgot about something very important for black in this position. Bishop takes a6 is not really working here, Gupta. Like the pawn on c6 is not really attacked, right? So rook f8, black is just shuttling around his pieces. He plays bishop h7, just moving, okay? But black was not just doing it for the sake of it. He was doing it for a particular reason. Black played rook e5, bishop d3, rook f7, just shuttling around some pieces, rook d7. Now, is there some danger here for white in this position? Not very easy to spot, but placement of pieces, right? Sometimes you can use some crazy ideas. Something like I was doing invisible moves. Sometimes you don't tend to consider the thing that is going to happen. Like, let's say white played king c3 here. What do you think black did in this position? I want you to think and tell me what do you think black did in this position. That's why you should not try to simply over it, right? Be very alert as to what your opponent is also doing. E4. E4, no, it's a black to play, right? I hope we are having a low latency today. Okay, so I think it is black to play what I'm asking you. Like, so the possible things that you should be looking for are c5, etc. Black is trying to maybe try for a win or maybe trying for an opening. You can try rook c7 and c5, etc. But sometimes we tend to forget about those possibilities which are very like not very easy to spot in this position. E4 square is in danger, and you want to play rook e4 in this position straight away, Rama. Are you sure rook e4? Like, I mean, just giving the exchange away, right? I mean, are we really sure rook e4 is working here? Bishop g8 is not really working, Ashank. The f pawn is hanging. That's the problem. Like, black doesn't really have a direct way. Now, rook e4. Yeah, exactly. Rook e4 is exactly the move, actually. Like, rook e4 is a beautiful move here, which is not very easy to spot. It's not very easy, like, because what happens is after you capture, right, the into e4, the rook is dead here on f4. The rook is never coming back in the game. Very difficult, not very easy to spot. And even if you sacrifice this after g f3, you should take with the g pawn, of course, not with the e pawn, and allow this rook back into the game. G into f3, and the rook is still going to be dead. Like, it's just stuck here on f4. And rook e4 was a brilliancy that black was like, he improved his rook to d7. Now we see the reason why. We're just shuffling around his pieces. And the moment, right, maybe what happened is he could have improved even further, for example king e6 or so forth, okay? But the moment he saw that king has moved to c3, he realized that, okay, I cannot take more chances. Maybe this rook, sorry, will come back to d4, and I'll miss out on the ship has now sailed. Maybe white comes to know and might figures that out, okay, this is possible, I will take my rook out of there. So before the ship sails, he plays rook e4, stops that, anchors that rook on f4, and white actually should have not captured. That is also one thing. He should have probably played something like this and just kept going. But what happens is there is a threat of playing rook f4. If gf4, then something to break through here. If ef4, we're getting a pass pawn. Maybe that scared black a little bit. Very nice there, Amma. You got it. Rook e4, just anchoring this rook on f4. Rook into e4 is also helping us. Clearly, you can get the f file, and that's an improvement. Next step later. After that, we'll see how to go about it. But we got the first improvement. He played bishop into e4 in this position. He took the challenge, and after d takes e4, black's rook is anchored there. Even if he tries to exchange the rooks, now what will happen is we have an extra pawn on the king side, and basically we'll be playing a pawn endgame. Like, we'll be playing king here, and then using resources like a zugzwang opposition, because the rook is not coming, right? Like, opposition, like we have taken away the c4 square. Now we will push c5 or progress a king further. Like, the rook is a joke here on f4. It's not coming in the game at all. Like I told you, f3 also doesn't bring it back in the game, just not enough. So white kept the rook on the board, but the game was over pretty soon. Black just played king c7 and rook d2. Basically what has happened is black is just a piece up. King c1, rook d5, king d6, bishop g8, rook d2. This is also a good step to do. Okay, bishop a2, so that pushing the king further to that side, then bringing the bishop back to e6, supporting the pawn. The rook stays here, locked in. King b1, rook d5. Like, black is just shuttling around. Okay, he's not fighting an exact plan. Maybe he had less time on the clock. Black could have gone like this, gone b6. He could have tried for an opening, but just keeping it slow. King e5, bishop g8, rook d2, finally getting that, and then rook a2, finally getting the exchange of the two rooks. And black resigned here, because white resigned here, because he realized that, okay, it's just not worth playing for so long without getting anything. For example, rook c5 check and bishop d5. Again, absolutely no way to go through. Rook into b4 following up soon. There may be even something better, we don't know, but rook a4 seems the simplest thing to do, and white is just simply lost here. Hello, Atul. Good to see you in the chat once again. So, very nice game here. So, being alert, like that is my thing here. Like, this is my being alert thing. So, I've not kept the player name, but okay. Being alert, like you have to be alert to what possibilities your opponent can also have. Like, sneaky possibility can just sneak up on you with rook e4. Suddenly, your rook is dead there on f4. White should have maybe played better though. He should have taken up the challenge in a better way, which is, you know, allowing rook f4, taking the different structure and then trying to hold off any entry point, like trying to play this endgame with king d4 sitting down. But white chose otherwise, and that really costed him immediately. Anyways, let's move on to the next one, guys. Okay, now again, from what we have done thus far, we are doing some few positions, right? You have an advanced nice pawn on d5. Everything is good. Figure out what your opponent is trying to do, and accordingly, you can decide what white should try to do. What white should try to do is consolidate his position, look for some good exchanges which will be beneficial, improve, maneuver your pieces, development, create breakthroughs. These are the few things or many things that we have learned thus far. We are trying to implement it into our own games, or when we see examples like this, we are trying to understand what to do, which exchanges are good, trying to get through with it. So here in this position, what do you think black will do is the first thing you should look at. Material. Okay, that's the first thing, but material is equal as we see. The second thing is what is black trying to do, which pieces will be effective in what black tries to do. Can we eliminate some pieces which black will try to use effectively in this position, and you will get what white should continue here. Yeah, bishop h6, bishop e3. Okay, yeah, different possibilities, but you didn't tell me what black is trying to do, guys. Like, that is important. What does black try to do in this position? He's trying to do something for sure. What is he trying to do? Yeah, he's trying to play f5 and he's trying to gain space in the center. So we can also do the same. You know, the d5 pawn is anchored. We have seen examples where we push the d6 pawn. Now we should determine whether that d6 push is going to be useful here. If I push d6, I have given black a diagonal. I have weakened my own pawn on d6 there. And I'm vulnerable to moves like f5, which helps black gain some space too in this position. So probably not the best of ideas playing d6. Now you can definitely anchor your position with something like c4. You have a strong center here. I have everything good. Bishop b7 is not really helping him. He's blocked behind my own pawn. Everything is good here. c4 is definitely a good move, but black's idea is to try to gain over some center control. Let's say he can even push e4, or he may not push e4. He may try to do development with bb7 and then get rook e8 and continue. Later, maybe eyeing to push e4. Now, we have to understand which pieces will be important in black's, uh, let's say, attack or pushing the pawns. Which pieces are helping him quite a lot. We realize that when he plays f5 e4, his king side is a little weak, but his bishop is doing an excellent job on g7 there. Excellent job on g7 there on this diagonal. Very irritating piece for us. So if we get a chance to exchange that bishops, it would be a good thing here. And if you understand that simple thing, you will get your first move. Your first move is you get a chance to exchange that bishop, then it will be much easier to play around here because we are not too worried about black getting something like e4, and thus bishop h6, using your tactics, your patterns to your benefit, and then getting knight f6, winning the queen. And if it does not capture, play something like bishop b7. Now we know what to do. Let's look at the same thing, bishop g7, and then consolidate with c4. So the big difference here is if he plays f5, it has opened up more opportunities for us. What would you do as white here? What to do as white, guys, in this position after f5? Clearly nobody wants to play d6 and sacrifice a knight on e4 for free. Yes, bishop h6 earlier is the good move. I was just explaining how you make the decision whether you should exchange it or not exchange it. That way you can decide in the game. Like, of course, not always will bishop h6 be good. Sometimes it's not better to exchange. Sometimes it's actually good to do that. Here we see that that's a good example to exchange the bishops. Knight g5, exactly. You have opened up more waypoints here with knight e6. Now e4 is not even a concern. But let's say we move a knight to c3 also. E4 is not really that useful for him because he's missing out on this important bishop, which was helping him quite a lot. And I have a simple edge here. Pretty good position here for us. No counterplay with the bishop entering d4 and then being an annoyance to us. Our bishop also may have not had the best square to go to. If you put bishop e3, maybe some f4, f3. Based on that, I've decided, okay, the bishop is getting more in my way. His bishop is being more useful to him. I will just exchange it off. And then I had the resource, I exchanged it. If I cannot exchange it directly, I'll try to use some tricky things or some resources to try to initiate that exchange, or try to go for normal development to initiate that exchange. Vice versa, you could try to look at what is best for you. Here it was bishop h6. So how to continue? Depending on the position, you get to know what you should do in certain position. Bishop h6 was the way to continue here. Yeah. And then later after that we can push and like progress with d6 or so, but we'll just quickly see what happened further. Okay, bishop g7, he played queen g7, white played knight c3. So black has played f5 immediately. What has happened is after this he went with knight c3, which displaces his idea to play c4. Now you know that c3 is a good square, but the point is that since there is no bishop on g7, there is no urgency. You have time. There is no e4 which is like, going to attack your knight on c3. Nothing like that. Your knight is safe. Now we can think of, creating more weaknesses. We don't have c4. Should we look at d6 here? Is d6 that good? Maybe not. Then we should look at alternative ways to hit your opponent's position, trying to initiate or create more weaknesses. You can also try to improve your pieces. You can try to create, maneuver your pieces into better squares, outposts, etc., etc. Many things to do. Here, can anybody tell me what they would do, what you would do as white in this position? What do you think is the best thing to do in this? Can we create another weakness to target? Do we already have any weaknesses immediately to be attacked? If not, we can create another weakness. Maybe this is a little slow for black. He has to prepare quite a lot. Clearly, if you attack with rook e1, you'll just play rook e8. It's not helping us that much. What do we do in this position if we know this? Knight b5, trying to go for outpost. Yes, that's good. Queen c4, improving your pieces into better squares. Very good. That's also a good move. But then we can differentiate like between which move will be the best for us. Double the rook on the d file, right? Okay, it will be good in the long run maybe, but at the moment maybe you will not be able to utilize it. Like doubling the rooks is much better if you're sure that he will queen. Like he's going to blockade you. Maybe he will just blockade you right away on d7. Like even if you double up the rooks. So maybe your idea will not be as useful to you here in the moment. You're not having an open file, you're having a semi-open file behind your own pawn. In those positions, you don't normally double unless you're sure that you can utilize it like immediately with d6, d7, that kind of thing. Then okay, here you don't, we just realize that he cannot really do it immediately. So maybe you don't need to double up on the d file immediately. And a4 is one thing we saw. Yes, rook d2 is the same, doubling up the rook on the d file. A4 though is the best move in the position, definitely. F4 though is not really that great, guys. See, F4 is exactly what black wants. He's not going to push E4, he's going to snap this pawn on F4 and get an open file for his rook. See, he's not having the best way to continue. Like I just told you, E4 doesn't really do that much. He has to get a lot of pieces inside. F4 immediately gives us the e4 square for the beautiful e4 square for the knight. Again, black has not enough pieces to generate a strong attack. For example, black plays f4. Now instead of playing knight e4 directly and allowing him f3, I'll just play f3. He's missing out his dark square bishop to generate anything here. Knight goes and sits on e4, a beautiful outpost. Black has hardly anything here. This is way too slow. It just takes too much time. By the time you're here and he gets here, you can even take, you can even play king h1. I don't think either ways we are having any strong attack to worry about here on this side. So just an example, but you can even take, I think. Just not enough pieces. You can just sit down your knight on e4 here and a strong outpost to play with. So A4 is to try to create a weakness on the other side. Instead of doubling up here, why not just try to get an open file? Now, what if he plays A6 in this position? We have a weak point here. Now, somebody had said the move. Somebody had set the best move in the position a while back. And we can do that right away here with queen c4. Now you can improve as your plan, because you're not only improving your piece to a better square, but you're also planning something like a5, breaking black structure. You're also planning b4, targeting this b6 point. And you know, you can use all the ideas that we have learned thus far, trying to improve your pieces into better squares, targeting again weaknesses. Queen b3, you can do it in many different ways, but that's one a4, that a big difference there. Just try to initiate a weakness. You don't rush with a5, that is bad. You don't want to allow him b5, then you're again allowing b4, then you're again allowing rook d8. That is not what you want to do. Queen c4, nice move here to stop everything. Rook a3 also would cut it. Try to attack the b6 weakness, and this is a good way to continue. Knight b5, knight d6 also was another way to try to improve. Queen c4 also was another way, but play moves which are trying to improve your pieces. And f4, we just help him, like e5, rook e8, rook e3, and that is even if you win the pawn back, right? You have not improved your position, you have improved his position. And second thing, remember your piece composition. You have a knight, he has a bishop. Like most likely the open position either will give him some counterplay or make his bishop more useful, and his rooks also more useful. So maybe you can find a better way to open, which is on the correct side with a4. Black played a5 to stop it, and then we have this beautiful hold. And now is the time that white played queen d5. But once you have this weakness on b6 to play with, you have a strong outpost. You can definitely even think of playing d6 in such positions, and then furthermore improve with queen b5, d7, because you're also having a second weakness to target on b6. But white played even better with queen b5. Black played queen c7, out came d6. Black played queen here, knight d5, exchanging the bishops because he has opened it up for him. But you have outposts, you have weak points, and you have a strong pawn. You have the king weak. Everything is perfectly falling in place here, like a perfect puzzle or a jigsaw that you solved. Rook into d5, e4, and rook at d1. Now it makes sense to double up because you are closely eyeing up on the d7 square. You're coming by d7 by force, and after you get d7, his pieces cannot move, and you can actually utilize your rooks effectively. You can even improve it via the d file. You can get it to better placement squares, attack more weaknesses, and this is where this idea shines, like doubling up the rooks. So just understand how we play. Try to create the second weakness. Try to take away the most important piece that would have been useful for black here, which was the dark square bishop. Then try to initiate two weaknesses on the board, and at the right time exchange the bishop for a knight, advancing up pawns and then doubling up the rooks. Perfect sync and harmony here, and black did not get anything. He did not even get to play e4 and f4 effectively. d7, h3. This is just a safety thing, not really needed, but always nice to have a safety, let's say flat square, you call it, right? Flat square too for the king. And just in case, you could have done rook e5, rook e8 also, maybe improve the queen, maybe even rook d6 is winning. Many ways to win here, but he just takes a flight square there, rook d6. And that is what I was trying to tell you, like your rooks can be utilized effectively on the d file. Now queen into f6, a serious threat, and white wins immediately, because after rook a8 he defends that threat. But what does white do in this position? White to play, can you finish it? The pass pawn first would be a weakness if you do it very early. Initially, once you get rid of the pieces, once you're perfectly placed, once you have the right entry points, then d6 is completely fine, because even in positions where you lose the d6 pawn by chance, your rooks will be able to compensate for it. You will be able to utilize your rooks effectively and maybe even target other weaknesses. King is also not very safe, and that is what we see here in this position. Queen into e7, there is queen into e7, then can you tell me the variation, guys? Like only one move is, yes. Yeah, so g3 and h3, I will come back to it in a moment here itself in this game. And isolated pawn, yeah, we have done already quite a lot on isolated pawn, how to continue. But we will do that in the last, like after I finish the transition, I mean the last 3 days, or maybe even tomorrow. last 3 days, we can do the positions based on isolated pawn. Not isolated pawn, all structures basically. Like roughly, we'll try to cover most of the positions. Rook e6 is rook into d7. Like, do we have something there, guys? Yeah, maybe that is also win. There are many ways to win. Maybe rook e6 also. I would say the easiest way is definitely queen e7 and d8 queen. It's also to do with the next thing which follows, okay? Not because you only get two rooks for the queen. Rook e6, I think, also should be winning here. Like, what do we do? Rook e6, and then we don't have the variation here. Rook e6, if you play rook d7, I think we can just go rook into d7 followed by rook e7, which is still winning, I think. Rook into d7 followed by rook e7, and I think that's why I said the king is pretty weak here. And if he does rook into e6, again, this pawn is just too strong. So it should most likely win your rook. Oh, shit. The rook will be on its way inside and you should be able to utilize it effectively somehow or the other. So this is also good, but queen e7 is the simplest one. But it's important that you don't like finish the variation here, but finish the variation here, okay? This is important. The queen can be dangerous in these positions. You cannot just say this is a win for white, okay? This is no longer a win for white. In fact, in this position, black is better. Like, it's not technically winning for him, but he's having a solid pawn structure towards his king side, so he cannot crash through there. The only thing that is lacking is the e3 pawn. Sorry, the b6 pawn. My bad. What am I saying? The b6 pawn. But the queen can be so good that it can easily, like, jump around queen e5, f4, e3, queen e8, queen a4. There are so many things that the queen can do that the rooks cannot, right? So in this position, the position is not that open. The two rooks are not stronger than the queen. So the variation has to finish here where you win the queen and you are a rook up simply. That is winning. Otherwise, it would not be a winning position. Now coming to the h3 thing, right? Here he played h3, how to make the decision between h3 and g3. Like g3 in this position could have allowed counterplay. I think normally I would have always played g3 here. Normally I would have played g3. Like, it would have made a big impact because if f4 was not possible, it would have been okay. But maybe black, like always, like you're human, you're not engine. So we're worried about that f4 and any attack on the f5. But if you look at the same thing by just replacing the move and just playing out, like let's say queen e7, rook e7, rook d6, rook a7, however the game went, I'll just play out all the moves and just show you something. So let's look at this same position here, and let's say this, sorry, not rook d7 but rook d6. Now white is like, slightly, it's actually not really, because still e3 is coming, but at least f4 and pass pawn is not there. But I think here again the queen is a dangerous piece, and easily perpetual is always like kind of thing which is there, right? The queen can easily be very strong here. So I don't want to play against the queen with two rooks here, especially in this position. But it can be useful to play g3 sometimes, especially towards the end game. The move g3 doesn't really create too many weaknesses, also doesn't allow black to easily make a pass pawn. So g3 can be good, but as humans here, you don't want to unnecessarily allow, like, some sort of counterplay, and that is not that is why he played h3. Just natural, like safer to play h3. Even like generally, if I was what, I would have thought of even h4, but again I see that queen is eyeing there. I mean, I'm sure that queen can never move from there and there will be no counterplay, but very unnecessary to allow that. And there was, I told you about the isolated pawn. So yeah, that is the end of this position. You saw how to continue. Let's move on next. Well, glad that you're following the advice. That's great. Are you following the advice for the IPL, or you're following the advice for the chess thing? But anyways, let's focus here in this position. And first thing is, we have to understand who is this position better for. Okay, we'll just try to understand. We are not trying to entirely like okay, black is only better, white is only better. You don't want to do that. You just try to understand which pieces can be effective for white, which pieces can be effective for black. What are the active threats that white has? What are the active things that black is trying to do here? And also some composition of the pawns, like, how easy it is for white to progress his pawns on the queen side. You can see that white is having extra pawn here on this side of the board. Black is having it right away in the center here. Okay, so generally we have seen this position, like you get to play e4 very easily. Black also is having the bishop, is also having the knight. The position is a little close. This is the thing you try to evaluate. Now your bishop on c2, is it able to get into the game immediately? Is there any way around it? You have two bishops. So white is better, is king safe is what you evaluated. Okay, good. You have taken into account that we have two bishops, your king is safe. Uh, what else did you take into account? I don't know, but you have taken these two important things, that the king is safe. But then you should take into account, when you see two bishops, how open is the position. That's also very important to see. Bishops will be only useful in open positions, not in closed positions. Knight is very useful for jumping around. He does the jump. And you know what he can do, what damage he can do, what tactics he can set up. So in this position, if you look at it, we have done such a similar position earlier also. It is black who is slightly better. E6 and C6 squares are weak. Excellent point there, Gupta. I would have missed it completely. Which pieces can come to this square? That's also important, right? Which pieces can enter the square? Does white have a piece which would be useful on the square? Or does it have a way to get there? Is it really the case? I know those squares are weak. This pawn is excellently placed on d5, but are we able to get any piece there? Are we able to get any piece there? The c2 bishop, is it reaching there? How is it reaching there? Can you please tell me? Are we going through here where there's a pawn there? Are we going through here? The rook is there. It's not reaching c6. That's what you have to understand, and that's where we determine that black is slightly better in this position. The king can reach that square's very nice point to it. The king can reach that square in the end game, or to take a walk and get mated. Like, that would be excellent to see, an excellent sight for black, but I don't think that is happening very quickly. So many pawns along the way. I think you'll have to play some anti-chess and start sacrificing some pawns to reach it there fast. But the point is that black is better here because he has a knight in this close position. White's two bishops are not being put to good use. And the third thing is, he's not able to create a pass pawn immediately here with b3. Like, let's say a b3, you can play a b3 also, you can play a3 also. And b4 is not a way to create a pass pawn. It's just not there. You cannot push c5 after that. Just like to show you. You cannot really create a pass pawn very easily. Very easily is the point. He can create, I mean, I'm sure he can create, but he cannot create it easily. That is another problem. Black, on the other hand, has a way to create a pass pawn immediately, get rid of the bishops immediately. See, that's the important points. Get rid of the bishop immediately, and this bishop is not being that effective. Rook will also join in. That is also there, but he's not able to utilize his pieces effectively. If he had a knight on the other hand, and the knight was heading to b5, that's outpost to attack the d6 pawn. If you had a knight which is heading to c6, well and good, excellent. You are definitely better. g5, c6, e6 better, but not the case here. So as is white here, right? You should try to create as much possibilities and you can try to utilize your bishops effectively. Like, I will show you a move here which may not be the best move, but the kind of things that white should look for in this position. Okay, g4. Now, it looks like a horrible bad move, but you're trying to utilize the potential of your bishops. This is where these kind of moves, which may not be good, you have to definitely give it a thought, calculate, and see whether maybe you're creating more weaknesses than trying to open up. But the kind of moves that will work, especially if the position is completely minus for you, a move like g4 is okay. But if you're completely better, you have two extra pawns here, black is missing this pawn on a4, clearly you should not be playing a move like g4. But this is one move which is possible here because you're trying to open up the position and trying to create more play for us on the king side. Utilize your rooks, bishops effectively. It's not the best order, not the best moves in the position, but you're trying to utilize your bishops for what they do best. Knight is getting an outpost, I get my bishops diagonal. Maybe the bishops are a little better here in this position. But g4 is a move. f4, on the other hand, is exactly the kind of move which you don't want to do here, guys. ef4, you can try, okay, f4, maybe you have queen e6, so maybe I can just play e4. And okay, again, the knight will be useful for maneuvering around. Your bishop will probably not be useful, and the position is not so close that black cannot attack some weak points. Like, he can always attack the b2 target by putting his queen on b8 and rook b8, etc. f4 also has some sense, but I don't think it's the best move in the position. Like, it is helping black a little bit more than us. Now I'll show you what he did in the game. White played f3, a little passive, and this is where we should oh shit, this is where we should try to use what we have learned thus far trying to create squares, holes. How do we continue? We have done a similar position earlier also. Can anybody tell me any move for black here in this position? Creating outpost, sacrifices, lead in initiative, badly placed pieces. What is the composition of the piece position? Like basically of a knight, which may be useful in close positions, etc. These are the things you should take into mind, and then you will automatically get it. Which move is the move for black here in this position? Knight b8. Yeah, a while back also, right? Somebody like when I was doing this similar position, black somebody had told the same idea with knight b8 and knight a6, which is also good. Uh, but see, like if you should be sure that you're reaching there at least. Like you should not waste too much time. Knight b8, knight e6, I think, because if you're planning this b4 square, you should probably like take control of it, and then you can think of rotating your knight all the way. But that's not the best idea. F4. No, that F4 is like, you have to keep a fine balance between keeping the, like I told you, if you just fix down the position, then what will you do eventually? You're not trying to hold a fortress here. You're trying to get something going. You have just made your bishop a horrible piece, and you have blocked down the position, and you're allowing white to, completely lock it down. Then you have no entry point. What will you do? Sit down moving around? That is not the way. So you should keep yourself some possibilities. Queen b6, okay, but I think you can do a little better than the queen b6, Gupta. The queen b6 doesn't really threaten anything or be useful in that way. So a move like e4, exactly the move that you should be looking for. Sacrificing, taking into account the composition of the position, what is the material. He has bishops, his bishop will become bad. I can exchange one pair of bishops, get my knight to e5, and the pawn sacrifice is kind of okay here. Like black played queen bishop into f6, white played queen into f6, and after f into e4, it's important to see this move f4. Although you're a pawn down now, his pawns are blocking his own activity of pieces. You have beautiful outposts which the knight can easily maneuver to. You have weaknesses on b2, and finally, you have a waypoint right away here to create a pass pawn like normally you would try to do. So we'll see how the game went, but it was more important for us to figure out when exactly e4, why exactly e4, and how to continue after this with f4. This is the most important. After this, it's not that difficult, but we'll see what he did. Queen h4. Okay, g3 is an idea, so you don't want to run into tactics. Rook f7. Just see how difficult he made it for white. Queen c3 is not really helping him, and finally it comes the time when you have to change. You cannot just push g4 here. You cannot do anything. Then it's time to go for the kill, and then you play rook a8, because you have to use your calculation. Like, okay, bishop into a4, I have knight g4, double attack, should be winning exchange, and I should be crashing through. Maybe I can find something better like f3 and all, which is secondary. uh, like I can try to smash through straight away. But if he plays something like h3, I have h5. Then he plays bishop e2, I go with g4. I have some mating ideas. This is where your calculation has to be substituted. But until here, you got a good position. And one important thing which people tend to forget it, like let's say you have a pawn up now, your opponent is trying to hold. He's trying to get something going. It's not like you need to go for the kill and always play this. You can play it other way also. Like you can play it safely by playing queen h6, queen g7, and wait for white to show off what he's trying to do. Most likely he will not have a way to open up. So you have a way out also. You're a pawn down, but you still have a way out. You're not losing in any sense. You have some weaknesses. You have some weaknesses that you can target. Your knight is beautifully placed here, and white is not having an opening also in this. White is okay here. Black is okay here. But I think it was safe to say that what he did in the game was beautiful. He just went with this. Rook f4, g3, knight f. No, no, what happened? Sorry, rook f4. Yeah, okay. He went with rook f4 and went for g3. After knight f3, queen h3, and then g3. I think there will be other ways also, maybe, but g3, g2, and then queen h2 with the forced queen coming here. Black went on to win. But these are all the next step of it. Tactical resources that you have to use in your game. Okay, let's go to the next one. Okay. What? Okay, I think I have the board now. I'm sure everybody should know what it is that white should do in this position. Is one of those you know who games, the great keeper maybe. So you know the plans here in this position, guys. Can you be just trying to revise some of the important ideas and how it should play? So can anybody tell me what white should do in this position? Which are the important squares we should try to target, and what do we do? Uh, Not really, Astro. I don't watch it that much. I I do watch it. I also do enjoy it, but I don't watch it that much. Sometimes I don't get the time also. Bring every piece to the king side. Very nice. Okay, that is also possible, but we can try to capitalize on some certain squares, key squares, and then b4, b5. Like yes, but probably you're rushing into it. You're giving black something to play with. Knight a4 followed by knight c5. Yes, of course, that is the idea that you want to look for here. Knight c5 instilling a strong outpost there, capitalizing on all the dark squares. And later you can think of either going with b4 and b5, which idea which somebody said in the chat here, before b5 Rama said that. And you can also like try to utilize your bishop against your good bishop against his bad bishop and try to exploit it in the end game. That's all we need to know. We are just revising the ideas. We have already done the follow-up plan how to continue in our previous sessions. We're just trying to revise with some key positions and ideas, like black played knight f6, white played bishop here, white played rook d4, white played b3, not loving any counterplay, not creating a weakness, and then slowly try to maneuver around, exploiting black's weaknesses here, and the right time he can even think of pushing e4 in the game and trying to open up and create further weaknesses. Why not knight into d5? How is knight into d5 working here, Gupta? Like knight into d5, c into d5, you just gave yourself a piece. I mean, you sacrificed a piece, like not gave yourself, you gave away a piece. Sorry, my bad. For nothing. Like you're not getting any tactic, and if you're looking for compensation, like that's not, this is not the right position for compensation. If you see his pieces right here, I don't think we are looking for compensation. We are looking for improvement. We are trying to improve our pieces into better places. We will, black is the one who will look for such sacrifices. He might look for some compensation, sacrifice some material to get some play. Yes, he can do that. We don't really need to do that. We are already better. So we can just try to improve our pieces. Bishop d3 also is a decent way. You can try to attack at 7 and initiate some weaknesses here like at 6, and then maybe try to improve with knight a4. That would also be good. But finally, this point is the important square, and I tell you one reason why bishop d3 was not played by white. Because he knows one of the plan, like I just showed you the game, right? It's to get rook d4. I think bishop d3 would have got in the way of it, and he can still do bishop d3 a moment or two later. It's not like the most necessary thing and the biggest weakness he can exploit after h6. This is not like a big weakness that you can exploit. Whereas I think here we can focus entirely on the queen side and try to slowly improve. And later bishop d3 can anyways follow suit. You can even think of playing bishop f3, e4 and then target another weakness here. So, okay, let's move on to the next game. Now here we'll see a new topic here, how to convert a simple edge, okay? It's not going to be too long. So simple thing, like you have a small edge here. How to play it? Like it's not winning for white, and white doesn't have a winning plan, and we are not 30. We are calculating 30 moves ahead here. Our goal is to just improve our pieces and know how to play when we have just a little bit small edge. It can be anything. A small edge, let's say an isolated pawn. An isolated pawn is a weakness, but it is not entirely weakness in in the middle game or in the when there are a lot of pieces on the board, right? We have seen, like, the positions, how exactly white has used his isolated pawn space that he has. Imagine like a bishop on d6, etc. You have space, you can try for some tactics, some weaknesses. If you had a rook, e3 is a hot spot here, etc. You have some weaknesses that you can also attack. But I've told you one important thing: the more the exchanges, the more the isolated pawn becomes a vulnerability than a useful thing. It is not really gaining, helping. Space is not the most important thing as we are heading to the end game. But glad you're enjoying it, Sachin. Great to have you here. Now How we should do is like we are in the end game phases, but we are not concerned about like playing and knowing the most important end game here or which pawn end game is winning. We are just trying to like we're just concerned about just improving our own pieces. So a3 b4 plan, very good. Trying to put your pawns on the dark squares. Then we should try to understand which plan, which idea will be more useful at the moment. A3 b4 is good too. Okay, it's not a bad idea. You're trying to improve your pawns to dark squares. You see a light square bishop. You see dark squares. That's the way to go. You have a bishop on e2. Dark squares gives you more freedom for your pieces to maneuver around. Like after b4, you can imagine your bishop can come to b3. After f4, you can put your bishop on f3. Yeah, you have dark squares which will always help you gain more space. Black is lacking that. Black would have preferred to have a dark square bishop here in this position because then he has freedom to come like this. Dark square bishop, okay? Not a light square bishop, a dark square bishop. Okay, what this is happening. So you can get the king out, and that is the thing to continue. Just improve your pieces. If you don't have a direct plan, just improve your pieces into better squares, get it closer. It's an end game. King needs to be closer towards the center. Simple thing to understand. King can join in now. Both the kings are coming together. This position is definitely not winning. Now comes the point which Rama said. Improve your pieces to better squares, open up more holes and more weaknesses. Previously, we saw knight a4, knight c5, but we know that that is a weakness which you can easily exploit or look forward to. b4. This is one idea. Putting your pawns on the dark squares is another idea. And somewhere you can also use resources like improving a bishop here or improving a bishop in here, etc. You have opened up some possibilities. It is just a slow thing. I'm just not. I'm just showing you what to do in these positions. It can be different to each and every position. Some positions it could be g4, but this is the way where we are creating the least weaknesses and slowly improving a position. Like just simple. Nothing, not direct plan, not guaranteeing your win, just playing the best moves. Engine, you cannot really win against an engine here, but you can definitely win against some human like White did in this game. Knight e8, he's also trying to improve and maneuver his pieces. Bishop d3, g6. Now black has boldly kept his pawns on the light squares here, which is not really a good idea actually. I would say it is better to put it on the dark squares here. So understanding when it is better, when it is not. Like here I think he was a little bit worried about some tactical resources like bishop f5 and then knight f5 and the pawn falling. Example, let's just say I play h4 and then bishop f5. He was a little worried maybe about these things. Wanted to not like lose these pawns like this. So he tried to play g6. But in the process, all the pawns now are on the light squares and he has a light square bishop on the board. So I'll just give you a small pointer which is not very easy to follow in the game. It would be better to keep the knight in the end game. Okay, it would be better to do that. We'll see what happens. Okay, king c3, knight c7, a4, b6, a5. He's trying to control more squares. Again, we're just trying to take over some important squares. You could also play knight b3, but you don't want him to push the pawns towards the darker squares, like not trying to allow him control. Black took on a5. Clearly after b5, you have some opportunities like this. And one more thing, uh let's say I play f4. This is a winning endgame. You can easily try to win this by keeping maneuvering your bishop. It's very difficult for black to hold this position because all the pawns on the light squares, all your pawns on the dark squares. But we'll see what happened and panned out in the game. We have done the most important part of improving the position. All we are trying to do is now improve it even further, create more holes and more possibilities on the board, like king c5, knight b3, king goes to b4, knight c5 ideas. Black played knight e6, white just played g3. He wants to keep as many pawns on the dark squares. Knight g5, you can easily defend with knight d4. Nothing happening here. Then kicking him away with f4. But knight e8, he's trying knight c6, white played knight d4 and knight c6. And this is what I was trying to tell you earlier. Finally black had enough and he saw that okay, knight is not coming here, bishop is hanging, knight is can come here, but I don't know, he played knight c6 and eventually this is a blunder because I was telling you like the knight can be tactical and tactically drive this king away. You should try to keep the knight on the board here. Okay, once you exchange the knights here, white is just simply winning because all he has to do is just take over h4, boldly pushing his pawns because he's understood that this is a strong possibility now coming soon. White just has to formulate it correctly, or let's just get it rightly. He played h5, but let's say black had played h5 in this position to block everything. What would you do in this position? Black is holding fortress, but is holding fortress on the wrong color. All you have to do is just simply exploit it. What is completely winning here? Can anybody tell me what they would do here? Before a4 a5 is what he did in the game. Black will have a backward pawn on b7. Yes, but he played b6 before that. And middle game, actually, I told you, like, I will be doing the middle, like London or different openings and different structures, right? Try to pick up most important ones, but I'll pick up some positions. May not be able to do all, but I'll pick up some positions tomorrow, day after tomorrow, maybe 2 3 days. We can do that based on different openings. Most common ones. Let's not do the uncommon ones. Whatever we can finish. And after day 14, uh, it's not going to be the end. Do it. It's definitely not going to be the end. We will be doing this frequently, so it's not like we are not going to post videos. We will be coming live streaming, so we may be doing the end game series soon. Maybe take a 1 or 2 day break, but then start with the end game series. Maybe some opening ideas. We don't want to teach lines here. We're trying to teach you opening ideas. If I do it, I will be teaching opening ideas that we can follow in the thing. And bishop c2 is definitely the idea. The g6 pawn is under attack, and the only piece which can go there is the king. Let's say he tries to do the bishop. I will show you what happens. Just not in time. Even if he reaches there in time, right, it's still losing for him, because you can still like execute such maneuvers. Like, I think here you can go with bishop c2 and then bishop d3, king c4. Let's just think. Basically, the point of this position is like we have to find out what is the zugzwang here. Ah, yeah, it's very simple actually, or maybe not that simple actually. Maybe not that simple. Let's try this. Let's say bishop goes here, and then bishop d3 is winning the pawn, bishop e6. We should find some zugzwang here. What is it that I'm missing out on? Bishop d1, bishop c6. Well, I'm missing out on something, but we'll do more of this in the end game. I'm clearly not able to calculate properly. If anybody is able to find out the zugzwang, that would be great. Or maybe we'll have to use some tactics. I don't know if there's a zugzwang here, guys. Maybe I made a mistake somewhere. I must have missed out on something simple here. Can we go bishop e5? But okay, like, that there will be a zugzwang definitely by improving a king. I'm just missing it out right now. But there will be a zugzwang. But the bishop reaches a4 and we are just in time to hit b8. And the king goes other side and we get a waypoint on c5 in this position that we are winning. Well, definitely I don't want to let Stockfish do the job. Like, I want to figure it out myself. But okay, at time I'm just not feeling fresh enough to figure it out what it is. But I'll definitely do it in the when we do the endgame series. We'll see more of some of this. It's not like going to be a short series, so we'll do some of this. A lot to learn in the endgame. One of the most important. Middle game also is very important. Opening, if you know middle game very well, I think any opening will suit you. That's my thing. Okay. So white was winning. What we did learn here is just a simple play, just a small edge. All you have to do is how to convert. Now this will depend on the position. Here we saw an isolated pawn. Other positions we might see like two bishop advantage. Other positions we might see a close position and just a knight on the board doing its jumping jack, moving around. Somebody said b4, a4, a5, fixing the pawns. Very nice. You learn some things there. You utilize that in your game. You fix the pawns. Very nice. That's good. You know that you have to put your pawns on a dark square. These are the important small things that you have to keep in mind when you're playing with just a light positional edge on the board. So let's move on. Guys, so we have about 30 to 25 minutes left. So around 8:35 p.m. we have a tournament today in memory of Advocate Kantak. So we'll be holding that at 8:35 p.m. So we will wind up before that. We'll be streaming that on Twitch also. So here in this position, and this is not the end, guys. Again, we'll meet tomorrow at 7 p.m. or 8 p.m. wherever. Like tomorrow also, we have a tournament streamers battle, which I'm not sure whether it is going to be held or no. If it is at 7 p.m., then we will hold our stream at 8 p.m. 1 hour later. I'm sure everybody is okay with that. So here in this position now we have again a small edge. What is the small edge? The small edge is so minimal that the knight is edge of the board, rook is badly placed, and we have a pass pawn. His king is also very far away from the center of action. The pawn is on its way. And one more thing to keep in mind, just like knight is good in open positions, the knight is not good when it's catching the pawn which is at the edge of the board, or knight is not a very good piece to have in the end games like this, especially if you're playing against the bishop. Sometimes, okay, not always, but against the edge pawn, right, it's always a problem because it just has a difficulty, getting itself back there. It needs to jump, and it's just not finding the right squares to jump around here. The bishop, on the other hand, is like, oh, I'm on g7. I'll just be one move away to catch that a7 pawn. So bishop generally works better, but let's see what white did in this position. Okay, black played e6 here. Now, best move, best practical chance would have been knight f6. Again, very not very easy to this, but white still has rook into e7 actually. Okay, maybe not really actually, but king f8, a5, and knight f6, is that working? Something like that will be a better practical chance, but e6 is natural, so let's see that. Knight goes to b6, knight is having difficulty jumping around. No squares here, so let's see what he does. He plays knight f6, white plays a5, and rook b8. What would you do in this position? It's just a simple positional edge. All you have to do is just figure out what are the entry points, waypoints for the knight to reach there on a6, and don't allow that. Simply just fix and push your pawns. What would you do here? You're most welcome, Gupta. Hope to see you next time. Rook c8, is it? Is the knight reaching back in time though? Maybe not. Yeah, knight may reach back in time. So unnecessarily, maybe you don't want to play rook c8. I think rook c8 also is winning though, maybe. Yeah, he did play rook c8 actually. He did play rook c8. Sorry, my bad. I was looking at this more rook c6. So I'll just highlight my point behind it. My point is that, after rook c6, his entry points are somewhere like this. He's not getting there. And my pawn is on its way. a7, a8, it's simply winning in this position. Plays rook b7, I have a6, then I have knight c8, then I have a7, and then I have rook a7 or rook c7, and the knight is coming back to b6, which is an immediate win. Now, this was a very simple position because you have the a pawn, the knight is so badly placed, but in your game, you may not have this exact position, but you may have a queen on c2, you may have a rook on c1, you may have a queen on b8. Okay, black may have that small change in the position. You will realize and understand what you have to do in that. Depending on black's position, you could have easily gone queen c7, trying to initiate some exchanges. You will not simply try to, put your rook behind the pawn and push the pawn. The queen can be dangerous. Exchange the queens, knight at the edge of the board, rook on e8, king on g8, badly placed, my pawn is fast. And if you're black here, you will know that e6 is anyways like it's over. Knight b6. I should try to do something crazy and I will play knight f6 and try to get my knight back fast. Or something like that. Could be something differently also, but you know your point. If I play rook e8, I'm sure people are aware of what to do in this position. Can anybody tell me, guys? What would you do as white here in this position? No, see, this time, right, when you play knight b6, rook a6, the rook is well placed here. It's not easy to kick away, so you cannot do knight b6, guys, okay? Rook a6, and now it's not very easy to win this anymore. This is what the things you have to avoid. Badly placed. You cannot push the pawn. You cannot move the knight, and you cannot move the rook also. You have put yourself in a horrible state here. So, knight b6 is not the way to continue. Be alert, guys. Be alert. Be alert. And somebody has said, yes, rook c8. Be alert for that. Simple tactic. Knight into e7. And why I'm transitioning into this also is boldly is first of all, a pawn knight is never good against the a pawn, very far away at the edge of the board. Second thing, I have weaknesses more than that also, like the d6 pawn. Simply is winning anyways, very easy to win. Knight e7 on the other hand, right, this is not very easy anymore, guys. I don't think this is easy anymore. If I play king g7, this is the kind of thing you should understand and try to avoid, because now rook c4, you will have to think of, if I exchange the knights, which endgame will I be playing? This knight is on its way now. He is jumping. He's jumping back. Knight b6, knight e5. He's back in the game, creating the tactical resources that he always has. And you may even win the pawn, or you may exchange up the knights. And let's just say rook c4, knight f6, knight e5. Okay, let's just say this is on the board. Knight d5, e d5. Suddenly, you're not really winning easily here. I don't think this is winning also. Again, these rook endgames are a little tricky, and even for me, it's sometimes difficult to immediately make an evaluation. But I think this is not winning because the rook is badly placed. If the rook was shifted to b5, pawn a5, maybe winning, but that's not important. What you have to understand is you made your life difficult. Rook c8 was the easiest, and you're simply winning. A simple material, simple positional edge. Black played like this, and you just simply converted. But your goal, let's imagine that you had queens on the board. You know, I can go for the exchanges, and the rook endgame with the knight on the edge of the board, king away, is winning. That is more important. You try to utilize those resources in your own game. Uh, okay, let's go next. Okay, I'll just show you one of my games before I come back to this game. I'll show you one of my games here, okay? From this position. Again, this is with me with, as you can see, a guy Welton Paul, which again I played. I don't understand why this chess base, it saves the place name and then saves the country also completely out of the blue. Let me just get rid of that. Yeah, it's definitely not in Skopje. This is in San Sebastian Open. Again, a very nice tournament for me. Now, here I will just show you, highlight some small things that are important to know in a game. Now, let's say this is basically close to resembling a London system. Somebody was just asking a London system structure. It did not go in the London system, but if you have a bishop on f4, it's close to one of the positions which arises in the London system. The bishop is just on g5 here. It's not the perk actually. It started with knight f3, knight f6, and a king's Indian setup, but white did not go for e4 and so forth. He played the slow knight f3, bishop f4, d4, bishop g5, e3, knight d2, cole, or whatever that structure is called. Like so, something similar to this. And here he castled. Okay, he castled here, and my goal was to play h6. I play many openings, Rama. Like I play Perk, I play Hippo, I play Sicilian, I play E5, I play many openings just like that. I played Scandi, so I played many mixed variety of things. I like to experience new positions, so I understand them more. So h6, bishop h4, and I was also, yeah, it's called Tore. I don't know exactly the opening. Tore, is it? Like okay, maybe you all know better. Bishop g5, knight d2 structures, maybe something similar to Tore, but it started with one knight f3. So transposition. Bishop h4, and I was also planning for g5, bishop g3, and something to do with h5 or knight h5, getting rid of the bishop and trying something in this way in this game. Okay, but my opponent immediately snapped his bishop on f6, knight on f6. Okay, after knight f6, now what has happened is I have the double bishop advantage. I was very pretty cool about this. I was like, okay, I will castle and I will play it nice and easy, and yeah, I will go about good. But my opponent knew something here. He had done this not just for the sake of it, and the next move was a pretty much a shocker for me. Can anybody tell me what do you think white played here in this position? Let's try to make a wild guess. Once again, guys who are new here, can, if you all enjoy the content, then definitely hit the like button and subscribe, guys. It does help us quite a lot and motivates us to come more often. Bishop c5, bishop c4, e4. Okay, yeah, these are the standard ideas in such positions. It's white to play, Nagaveni. It's white to play. What did white do? Queen a4 was not really a shocker to me. Like it is a decent move. Queen a4 is a good move, which yeah, it does have some ideas, but it was not really a shocker to me. The shocker was not e4. The shocker was e4 doesn't really work, guys. E4, knight into e4, like what are you planning to do? Knight into e4, then I've highlighted this, knight e4, bishop e4, I'm a pawn up. Not enough play. And if you try something like bb5, I'm happy to move my king also. Like I don't think it's enough. You just don't have enough pieces to create problems for my king. I wouldn't mind sacrificing my castling chance to get bishop f6 and king g7. a few moves later. The shocker was not h4, e4, or anything. Shocker is understanding that these bishops can be very annoying on this diagonal and create a lot of possibilities, and playing the move bishop a6. That was a shocker. I did not think of bishop a6 at all in the game. But this is a very nice move if you understand the idea in basis of the position. If you eliminate the light square bishop, then there are a lot of pawns on the dark squares to worry about, and my bishop is not the most ideal piece there. It's only ideal if I have a light square bishop and I have a pair of two bishops to play with. Only then can it be very effective. Otherwise, white is better normally. Normally, it would be better. I did not see this move in the game. I think I was not expecting a move like bishop a6. I had seen queen a4 and all, but I was not expecting bishop a6 to just flow in like this. The point is bishop a6 and queen a4, and Engine, of course, says this is the best way for black to continue with bishop a6 because he's playing all the moves which are like not really like not taking long term of the position. He thinks bishop a6, but I gave it a long thought here in this position, and I decided that yes, my main goal is to play with the bishop, so I want to keep it on the board. Clearly, I cannot say like I'll give my bishop here and prevent the exchange of the bishops. That's even worse. Now all the light squares are weak on the king side, so I played this move bishop c6. It's important to understand the position. I'm okay to waste a few moves in that process just to keep the pair of bishops. So I'll now flip the board and we'll look at it from this side. White's main goal is, like, suppose in this positions white is planning to exchange the bishops, right? Let's just give an idea. Suppose something like this. Bishop a6 is actually a good move in this position to get rid of this bishop, because first of all, two bishops I eradicate, and secondly, we create some holes on the light squares here, which white can then try to play on with something like a4, a5, and try to initiate more weaknesses. So I will do what in this position after queen e2? I will play a move like a6 or a5. I think a6 is the move that I would choose here. Temporary weakness. Long term, I can think of pushing b5, c5, and queen c7 and try to utilize my two bishops for what they do best. Now, in the game, we played bishop a6, so I gave it a long thought. I played bishop c6. I understood that it's important for me to keep my bishops on the board as long as possible. Okay, I want to keep the bishops on the board. He played queen e2 and I castled. Now here white went ahead and played e4. He could have played this move bb5, where he is going to annoy me with the exchanges like bishop here, bishop a6. He can annoy me with there, and I cannot really deny the exchange now. I tried. Finally, I cannot deny it. So I will look for something else, maybe capture, play a6, b5, get something going quickly with my pawns at least. At least in return, I have something there. So I tried my best, but I would have failed. He would have been able to exchange. So it was okay. I cannot try too hard and like think of everything to my benefit. Like here in this position, I'd say I'll play here. Anyways, exchange is coming. I'll play queen d7. I'm putting my queen in a bad spot here, allowing e4, d5. Again, I have to keep running around, shuffling around. That is not the way. You should try for a certain point, not try hard. Try hard is bad. So castle, e4, and I played e6. Now this looks an odd way to play, but my long-term idea will be highlighted just in a few moves, okay? It seems very odd to put your pawns like this, but white doesn't have pieces that he can utilize to exploit my weaknesses. Bishop is missing. That will be the important piece to exploit my weakness here. I don't need to rush and play e5 and create a hole here for myself on e5. Easily exploitable. Maybe rook d1 and e5, however it is. Or maybe I lose the pawn straight away. You never know. I think I'm losing the pawn straight away. So not really good. So what I did is just slowly improved. Okay, a4. Now I played finally rook b8. I realized that I have time. I have consolidated my position. I don't have to worry about moves like d5. I can keep the bishop on the board. So he played rook a2. Maybe he could have played a little more aggressively with a5 and rook fp1 something. He played rook a2. But we'll see how I just got a slight edge as we go further. Okay, I have two bishops now. Knight h5. Some ideas here. But played rook e1. Bishop d7. Why exactly? Bishop is not doing anything here. My future goal is to play e5 and I can utilize it on this side of the board. The goal here is not to exactly copy or do it the same way I do it, or it doesn't have to be like that. You have to just understand in your game what you can use to your benefit, because nobody engine doesn't suggest this anytime. But in such positions, you can take your time to go about as you like slowly improve. So knight f1, I played e5. He played at e5. And again, if he plays d5 now, I have two bishops to play with. I have this beautiful, you know the structure. It's the King's Indian structure. And I have my bishops both helping me there. I needed the light square bishop here for any sort of attacking ideas. So if he plays bb5, actually here I should even maybe even try to prevent this. But I cannot really do it actually. If I could prevent the exchange of these bishops, then it would have been even better. Like this is a good move trying to exchange. Or maybe I have knight f4 and I can prevent the exchange of the bishops. That's a good thing. I want that bishop for any sort of attacking ideas on the king side. Long-term thinking, guys. Long-term. Now he played d into e5, and we'll just go through this. This is also a very nice move because I know that he's trying to take over this diagonal and try to benefit and maybe restrict my bishop. What I did is bishop e6, bishop c4. The bishop is unprotected, and after the rook goes back, d into e5. Now what has happened finally? I have the two bishops to play with. Some important squares my knight can head to. And if it defends it, my knight can always maneuver back and take a different route. So we'll see how I played out further. Okay, knight e3, knight f4, queen c2, queen f6. Not immediately committing to anything. Just some tactical ideas, resources, keeping it simple. One important thing, you don't want to exchange the light square bishop. One exchange makes a huge impact. Suddenly white is better already. Your bishop is bad, right? You want to use your bishop effectively and try to keep those two bishops so that you can use them in the game. Let's see how we did it. Knight d2, c6. Now c6 looks like a weakening move, but I think more to say, like, I'm more worried about the squares and ideas that white can use to his benefit. Bishop c4, bishop d7, no exchanges. Bishop f1, h5, rook d1, rook ft8, b4. He's also trying to do something, but black has already achieved what I achieved what I wanted to achieve already. Now my goal next is, like, trying to go for the right exchanges and utilize my two bishops for the best. Bishop h6, putting it on this diagonal, activating it. Bishop e6 back. No more bishop c4. I put it back there. Rook d1. And I'm okay with the rook exchanges because I know my queen and along with my two bishops can be very useful with the knight. His pieces are badly placed, and somewhere deep down I realized that he has played this. My bishop, if it reaches d2, I am winning pawns. That's taking way too ahead, but I have these ideas, and this is the way I try to utilize. Like, I see the weaknesses. Okay, which pieces will be useful? My bishop. I'm not going to capture on e3 very unnecessarily. But I can use them to my benefit. I moved my bishop back. This was just because, I didn't want to allow any entry point. And I was also trying to just gain time on the clock. I was having a little bit less time. So I was trying to gain some time. Queen d2 before I figure out my plan. This doesn't really change the position. This is also like taking a step back and understanding that nothing is happening. White has no plan that is useful. I don't need to worry. I can just move around and shuffle around some pieces. Knight e6, king g7, knight f4, h4. Finally, while I was doing this, right, I was just thinking of what I should do next. Just to gain some time, I did this. And I just tried to think, okay, I can do this. I don't say anything for white. I'll do this. I created one hole here. Try to create some tactical opportunities. Put his king in the bad square. Again, I'm back to e6. Again, if you play with the engine, this position is a draw. But we are not engines, right? So we'll see what happened. He played knight d6. Eventually, what happens is I'm planning f5. I'm planning something. White realizes that, okay, this will not work if I just sit down passively. He tries to do something on the board. Get knight e8. Something to do on the board. Like, he needs something. Finally, you cannot play like an engine, right? So I played knight h5. I created one hole here, right? You remember? Now I'm attacking this f2 weakness here to my benefit. Simple small edge without, doing anything concrete. Now I have ideas of bishop d6 and queen f2. And by now I had seen it on my opponent's face that he was disgusted because it is just not working out too well. Bishop c4, he went for the aggressive. And finally, I use my tactical resources to get something going. And that is it. Bishop c4, knight c4, queen e4, winning a pawn. The queen entered inside. I have to calculate this. This I calculated, of course, guys. You cannot just simply do it. I was calculating different possibilities. Bishop d6, bishop c4. Thanks a lot, Poonam. I'm glad you're enjoying the session. Bishop c4 or whatever. Finally, it is a tactical transition. You have to use your calculation to your benefit. Queen into e4, queen d7, bishop g5. This was a bad move actually. I had to play queen b1 check first. A small mistake error, but I was having less time. And then bishop g5 because you're threatening this king immediately. The problem with bishop g5 first is white could have played this move knight d2, which I completely forgot. I calculated that white has some resources. Can anybody tell me? Before I ask for that, I'll just show you. Knight d2 covers the square, and the queen is not having those important c2, d3. Queen doesn't not doing what it does best here. He's not able to. But I was just trying to lure my opponent, and I don't know. I was just thinking of something only one-sided a little bit, but I was just thinking of one idea, and I'm sure everybody in the chat should get it. What do you think White can do in this position? Queen takes f7, exactly. I calculate queen takes f7, and I had already figured out until the end game. So, but it was like less time on the clock. So queen takes f7 is immediately winning for me. I figured out everything basically, that I'm winning 100%. Queen takes f7, king takes f7, knight d6, king e6, knight into e4, bishop e3, f e3, knight g3 check. Knight into g3, h g3, and my king is on its way. Either this way or this way. I'm much faster. White is just stuck here on h1. So, okay, it's not that difficult, no, not that long. If I play here, then I was playing a5. It's not that difficult. The king is just not reaching. In b5, b5, the king is reaching like this and entering. Everything is immediately winning. I've calculated everything here. The one thing I forgot to calculate is knight d2. I also calculated the move that he played in the game, but I forgot about knight d2 coming back. Invisible moves, I told you. Pieces can also come back to different threads. Forgot about it. So I was excited that he'll take queen f7 and knight d6, knight e4, and I can play out my variation. And knight d6 also was much easier. Like he did in the game, he played knight d6. But it was even easier. Knight d2 would have made life a little bit difficult though, because it stops this. It's still winning, but makes life a little bit difficult. Knight d6 is what he played, and then after that we have a finish here. Bishop f4, uh, g3, and then can anybody tell me the thing here? I mean, it's easy. Like we don't need to. There's so many ways people will say hg3, but can you find the mate here, guys? Super Grandmaster prepare for the game. Like I'm not a Super Grandmaster, I would say, but the same way, like we prepare, but maybe a little more special, a little more deeper, maybe a little more based on openings, etc., which you don't need to do. Okay, you're not at there, so you don't need to focus entirely on openings, but they have already done what we are doing right now for a long time in their early young days. So then they are trying to do just improve and polish what they have already done. But first thing you have to learn it. If you have not learned it, learning opening is not going to be enough. Can anybody get it, guys? This will be the final thing. Tomorrow again we'll be doing some things based on this, and then later half of the stream we will do some positions which come from openings. We're not going to do openings, some positions which come from those relative openings, and try to do uh, something in that, like how to play different positions, like some opening positions, not all but some of them, and maybe 2 days we can do that. Yes, not g3 is already played on the board. Like we can see g3 right here. Bishop into g3 is the finish, and yes, this was not that difficult. H f into g3, then h into g3, king here, and then queen comes out to b2 or a2, wherever you want it. Definitely not c2. Of course, if it was c2, that would have been unfortunate. But queen b2, and then queen f2, and I think here I also knight f6, and then we win the queen. Yeah, knight into d7 wins the queen, but it did not happen in the game. In the game, he played king g2, and then I found a mate here with knight f4, queen h1, queen is on the run, knight e6, and then bishop f4, and the king is mated here on g5. Picturesque one. This is a nice mate, nice game. Oh wow, we have a variation here. g3, bishop g3, king g2, queen b2, king f3, queen f2, king e4, queen f5. Queen f5 is Queen f5 is not a mate, right? How can queen f5 be a mate? Queen f4 is what you mean. No, the queen f4 is king is escaping here. It's exactly not the mistake we want to do. Let's play safe, win the queen. Think of the mate later. You're winning, it's good enough. So okay, that was it. This was my game. I showed you how I played it, why I understood the positions, why bishop a6 was a big shocker to me. And similarly, I'll try to explain more from my own games also. Some positions, like we do some positions tomorrow from different openings, my own games also. I will show you some different positions, some different games. Hopefully, you all enjoyed this session also. And you all will tune in tomorrow, even though the IPL is going on. But hopefully we will see all tomorrow. And guys, if you are not doing anything else, then 8:35, 4 minutes, there is a tournament we are holding in memory of Advocate Kantak, who recently passed away from our state, fighting his battle for cancer. So we are holding one small tournament in memory of him. So if you have some time, you can definitely join our team and play the tournament on Leeches. Starting in 4 minutes, and we're streaming this on Twitch too. I just placed it here, and I think, and yes, you're most welcome. And we will see you tomorrow, guys. Tomorrow, maybe we'll decide on the timing. Maybe it could be 1 hour later. It could be, but I mean, I will definitely be streaming though. So stay tuned, and I'll see you tomorrow. I'll end up the stream now. Good to have you today. Thanks a lot for tuning in, and definitely hit the like button. And if you haven't, then already subscribe, please. That helps us, like supports the stream and motivates us more to do more for this. We'll do more in the coming days. So do do support us by help just hitting that like button and subscribing. Thanks a lot, and I'll see you tomorrow. Bye bye.